He ended up pinching her in an intimate place, and the school neglected to call me until the end of the day, so that there was a possibility that we could not get any pictures taken of the bruise that was left on her from the incident. The board members I tried to reach out to never contacted me back. My phone calls were never returned, my texts were never returned, and I was never invited to a board meeting to discuss it. I feel like we get blamed a lot for the lack of enrollment. They blame us because, oh, well, you'd have just kept your kids in public school and been quiet. It would have been fine. I don't want to be called like a bad person because I homeschool my child.
Are you interested in innovative education and diversity in school models? Do you see a need for something different to bring about a reformation in our current education system? If so, then you've come to the right place. Join us as we discuss what's trending with unconventional learning models, including microschools, homeschool co-ops, creative learning centers, hybrid school models, and so much more. I am your host, Delina Wallace, president and founder of Wichita Innovative Schools and Educators, also known as WISE. This podcast, WISE and Otherwise, explores what our local hub of education entrepreneurs are doing in Wichita. We will also explore and offer brief introductions to the many local and national organizations that support innovation and education. Welcome to WISE and Otherwise.
Hello, and welcome to another show of WISE and Otherwise. I have with me today Jaci Unruh. She is from Sharon Springs, Kansas, far out west. That's in Wallace County. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct.
Thank you for being on the show with us, Jaci.
Thank you for having me. I'm very excited.
Yeah, absolutely. So a few weeks ago, we had on our show, we had Nikki Chubb, and she's also in your area. And she had just kind of a remarkable story regarding her experience there in the public school and her motivation for beginning to homeschool. Everyone's journey is unique. Everyone's journey is different and leads them to this place of looking for options, it seems like. And I wanted to hear more about your story and some of the other parents from the school and that community there. So just a refresher, if you haven't heard the podcast with Nikki Chubb, she was a parent of her kids were in public school and everything was going well until they had just this kind of surprise but disturbing meeting, and there was some sexually explicit content that was shared. Parents were given the option just the night before to opt out. And otherwise, if the parents didn't happen to see this note that went home with them, with their student the night before, then their kids would have been included in this meeting. And it kind of caused a little bit of upheaval and some uproar in the community after that happened. Several families pulled out of the public school and started homeschooling. Some moved away. And Jaci, even before that happened, with your daughter, you had some other situations happening that has led you to the point of homeschooling right now. Can you tell us a little bit about your experience with your daughter?
Yes. So to start with, we had my daughter had a classmate who had a parent in that school who taught, and this child actively bullied my daughter for half of the year, and I had no idea because my daughter didn't share that with me. I was told by multiple other parents after a activity that we had at the school about things that they had seen in front of other teachers that they wouldn't do anything about it because this is a child of another teacher. So I addressed it with the former superintendent at the time, and he solved that problem. But then as the years went on, we ended up with another bully in her grade, and he would kick her, he would pinch her, he would slap her, he would say horrible things to her. At one point, he told the entire class to kill themselves, and nothing was ever done about it. And it escalated much farther than we were ever comfortable with. He ended up pinching her in an intimate place, and the school neglected to call me until the end of the day, so that there was a possibility that we could not get any pictures taken of the bruise that was left on her from the incident. And my daughter ended up retaliating physically against the boy after years of torture, essentially. And then my daughter was basically told, well, you're a bad kid because you punched someone, and that's bullying too. even though the other child who was hurting my daughter was never fully punished, in my opinion. And then the meeting that Nikki talked about in her episode happened. And we were not getting anywhere with administration. The teachers had no help to solve the problem with the bully. So we just decided that we felt God led to not continue with our public school because we could not get anywhere with administration to help us solve the problem for our child. And before these incidents happened, my daughter was never in the office for anything bad. I had multiple parent-teacher conferences where they said that they loved her and that she worked hard and that she was kind and very, very helpful. So I just couldn't understand why our administration would not step up to help my child, even though we were trying to be cooperative and we had multiple meetings, and it was just really frustrating.
Yeah, definitely. And how do you feel like the teacher of the classroom, was she able to handle that? And was she able to discipline, or was she supported?
She was a new teacher to our school district at the time. So she had never had a classroom on her own. She had just been student teaching up until that point. So this was a very difficult class to have because of this one student it wasn't just my child that was being bullied, it was everyone. And she kept asking for help, and the school was either unable or unwilling to provide her the support to get this child either to get an aide in the classroom and or get him out of the classroom so that she could teach the rest of the grade.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So one student was causing some disruption, had behavioral issues. It sounded like bullying. Your daughter was the recipient of some of the bullying, and then other students as well. This teacher, brand new teacher, trying to do the best she could. You said that she had tried a couple of different ways to take care of the situation. What were some of the things that she was trying to do to help?
So we moved them from across the room from each other so that they weren't sitting next to each other multiple times. We moved her all over trying to solve it. And then during breaks, she would separate them so that they weren't walking with each other and not sitting next to each other during lunch. And she would send him to a different part of the playground to play away from her during the day. We tried multiple different routes to solve the issue. They talked to the mother, and the mother was just unwilling to believe that her son was doing anything wrong. Oh, he just has a crush on her, which I don't think is a good excuse ever.
Yeah.
But we tried multiple routes to solve the problem
Yeah.
before we took it to the superintendent.
And so you had the superintendent and some administrators there, but they were unwilling. I mean, in your opinion and what you saw, like they did not help support the teacher or offer discipline. And it sounded like they were just not being protective of your daughter. And you were unable to be there.
They would send him to the office, but then he would get sent right back an hour later. So I don't know obviously I wasn't in the office when he was there, so I don't know what he got told or if he just sat there or anything, but repeatedly he would just be sent back to the classroom for that poor teacher to deal with. So she wasn't getting any extra support, and our school is small. We don't have a lot of staff for like an extra aide in the classroom or anything like that.
Right. So again, kind of what Nikki was saying, like the lack of parental involvement and parents being informed of the situation of like what was happening in the classroom and maybe what was being taught or what was going to be presented to the kids was a real issue.
Yeah.
And what happened when you reached out? Because I know you reached out to a couple of board members, like of the school board as well.
The board members I tried to reach out to never contacted me back. My phone calls were never returned. My texts were never returned, and I was never invited to a board meeting to discuss it. So that felt frustrating that the people that are supposed to keep the superintendent in check don't care enough to call you back.
Sure. Right. And when we talked earlier, we also just mentioned how the lack of parent involvement, lack of information being shared with parents, but even like the physical restraint and restrictions that's on parents, they're not even able to come into this school. You said, number one, they didn't call you when this issue happened until it was the end of the day. You could have been there. You could have responded. You could have come to your daughter, taken pictures, seen the bruise. But then even when you are at the building, so a little background, you attended this school, right?
Yes.
And this is the school you went to in elementary. Your husband went there. You were saying that the secretaries have known you since you were a child.
Yes.
And even with that, like you're locked out of the building. Is that right?
Correct.
You're not able to come. You can't come and see your daughter.
They buzz
And
you in like it's prison.
yeah, and I don't know how many of our parents like this will resonate with, but I was sharing an example from me. So I've been blessed to homeschool my kids from the beginning. But my son, my youngest, needed some speech therapy. And it was advised, why don't you go to your local public school? They can have him evaluated and they might be able to offer some speech therapy. And so I thought, okay, I think I'm going to try this. And I went and I took him, and they wanted me to wait outside in the front doors. Like there was a lobby, there was like 2 glass doors. Like I could come in the outer doors, but I couldn't come in the inner doors. And that they would take him back and evaluate him by themselves. And these are people that I don't know and he doesn't know. And I should have walked away. I should have said like, no, this is not okay. I'm not okay with this. But I wonder how many parents is this unsettling to other parents to know that we're not allowed? Not only are we not allowed to go into the building, we don't even know what they're covering and what's going to be taught. We don't know about the behavior issues, the discipline or the lack of discipline in the issue or in the classroom. And I think this is an issue for parents. And I know that if this is happening in a small town, Sharon Springs has, you said maybe 1,000 people in the whole town?
Yeah, in the whole county.
In the whole county. Okay.
Yeah.
And you only have one school there. Is that correct?
Yes.
So
the nearest school is 30 minutes away.
Okay.
So we don't have a lot of options.
Right. You're in Wallace County. They have one school. It's a K through 12 school. And if parents are upset about what's happening, and we know of multiple parents, and you've mentioned, and Nikki's mentioned, multiple parents have been upset about some of the things that have happened to the point to where they've pulled their kids out, or they've moved, or they're taking their kids to other schools in other counties. But if they feel stuck, so this is where I feel like, highlighting the work that Nikki's doing there and that other moms, homeschooling moms who are surrounding and supporting parents and offering additional options. They're doing hybrid schools and they're supporting moms who say, okay, you might not think you weren't planning on homeschooling. You might not think you can do it, but we're here for you and we support you. Yes. So when you had to make that decision, what was it like for you to know you got to the point, and I kind of fast forwarded here, but you got to the point to where you and your husband knew that you were going to homeschool. Tell me about that process and what it was like for you.
Well, we had, when the pinching incident happened, we were about 4 or 5 weeks till the end of the year. And Nikki had advised me not to pull my kids middle of the year because it would create a huge problem for her. Obviously, she went through a bit of a legal battle and all that jazz. And so I'm like, well, just ride it out and then we'll make a decision over summer. So come that July, we prayed about it all summer long. I didn't feel any clarity until we got really close to the end of the year, to the end of the summer. And it just finally came to me, and I don't want to wonder what happened to my daughter during the day. I don't want to wonder what she's being taught. I don't want to wonder what kind of things are in the curriculum that we don't know about because we don't see the books or the worksheets or whatever. I don't want her to be bullied. I don't want her to throw up at school or not want to go to school in the morning because she's so upset. Mm-hmm. So we just finally decided, let's try it at home. We'll give it a year. and we'll see how it goes. I mean, if not, we'll figure something else out. And it feels better having her in my sight where I can see her. I know what happened to her.
Mhm.
We can adjust our schedule. And it just has been working out so much better since then.
Wow. Are many of the families in your community, in your town, do the moms stay home? Do they have the option to homeschool their kids?
A lot of moms stay home in the community because we don't have a lot of daycare. We have 2 daycares and they're all full. And so the majority of us choose to stay home or are lucky enough to have grandparents that can watch their kids. There is some of that. And some of them do have the option, but most of them have their small kids and they're not quite school age just yet.
Mm-hmm.
But we do a lot of outreach. We talk to moms, we talk to other moms that are still in the public school. If you ever change your mind, come talk to us.
Yeah,
We'll help you.
that's
And
great.
Kira and Nikki have created an environment where if you're curious, come ask and we'll help you. Because that's
Mm-hmm.
what they did for me.
Yeah.
When we were deciding, I went straight to Kira and Nikki and I'm like, okay, lay it down for me. What curriculum do you use? How hard is it to set up a private school in Kansas? Because we're technically private schools. We're not technically homeschoolers in Kansas. That's the law.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever.
Yeah.
And they had a packet ready for me with all of the information I needed
Mm.
to do all of that. And then they had suggestions on curriculum, and they made it easy for me to be a part of their group. And they welcomed me with open arms.
That's so great. That's so great. What about the moms who do have to work? Do you have multiple families in the community where they have they're just on dual income, like they require both parents to be working? What options do they have?
Yes, there are quite a few families that are dual income. And a lot of those families won't homeschool because they're worried about the childcare aspect,
Mm-hmm.
which
Sure.
is understandable. Most of them either have multiple ranges of ages of kids.
Yeah.
There's not an option for them to stay home alone because they're not old enough or they don't trust their teens to be home alone, which
Yeah.
I understand. But I mean, I know that there are families that homeschool at night when you get home from work
Mm.
because they don't want their kids in the public school system either. So there's a
Mm-hmm.
lot of ways that you can do it. People just don't know that those things are options, I think.
Right. Right. You mentioned that the nearest school, other than this Wallace County Public School, was about 30 minutes away. What about the nearest Christian school? Are there any private Christian schools in the area?
There's one in Colby and it's an hour away or an hour
Mhm.
and 5-10 minutes.
Okay.
It's quite small. It's called Heartland Christian.
Okay. Oh, good
Um,
name.
yes, they have
Nice.
some very good programs over there, but
Mm.
you can't, and you have to be on site for that one. So you have to
Okay.
drive to put your kid
Mhm.
there. So that's not the most feasible option for somebody that lives here.
Sure. And it's probably 5 days a week. They might not have the hybrid
Yeah,
part-time options.
I'm not sure what their options are, but I know you
Yeah.
have to be there for the majority of the week.
Thanks again for listening to this episode of Wise and Otherwise. We'd like to ask you to take a minute and please rate and review our podcast so that others can learn more about us and just to continue to show your support for this work that we're doing. It would mean so much. So please, if you're on Spotify or Apple or YouTube, take a minute and give us a good review.
Okay. And I'm sure there's some tuition involved that might not be feasible for a lot of families. So it sounds like options are limited and a lot of families, their hands are tied. Now, overall for the community, I know Nikki mentioned this, you've mentioned this in conversation, but like there is very strong ties with the public school and like the community, there's almost this fear of the public school getting shut down. And what would they do if the public school got shut down? And so how is the community reacting now that some families are pulling out and they're trying or deciding to homeschool? How are they responding towards you guys?
Very negatively. I feel like we get blamed a lot for the lack of enrollment. We get blamed a lot for the people moving away. They say that we're stirring up trouble and that people are watching what we're doing and they blame us because, oh, well, if you'd have just kept your kids in public school and been quiet, it would have been fine.
Hmm.
But I mean, as a parent, it's your job to protect your children from the bad things of the world. And I'm not going to leave my kid in a public space where they're not safe.
Mm-hmm.
And I've explained that to people, and it's still, well, how are you going to feel if the public school shuts down and then the town dies?
Mm.
That's not on me. That's
Yeah.
on the people that are running it personally.
Right. Right. And that's a lot of pressure. And I mean, you love the school. You have roots there. You and your husband have attended. So it's sad for you to see this turn of events and to see the way that it's operating. Is that
It's
right?
very sad for me. I'm a proud Wildcat. I loved my school. I loved playing sports for my school. And it makes me sad that I cannot let my child have the same experience that I had. But it's not the same school that I was at.
Yeah.
It's not the same at all.
Mm-hmm.
There are very few things that are similar to they were 10, 12 years ago when I was in. And even another 10 years before that, when I was in elementary school, it's not the same place.
Yeah.
And I understand that things change, but they have not changed for the better.
Yeah. And when you've tried to tell people, do you feel like there are a lot of people who want to hear this? Or are they not really
Well,
wanting to listen?
it depends on the person, but the majority of people just don't even want to talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
I've had some people come and ask me questions, but they aren't willing if you bring it up to them. It's kind of a don't talk about it thing.
Right. Why do you think they don't want to hear what's going on?
I think it's a resistance to change. We're a
Mhm.
very old community with people who have liked the way things have been forever. And I think that that's a big part of it.
Mhm.
Don't rock the boat because I don't want to
Right.
fall in.
Right. Right. And it's ended up, it sounds like, being kind of a divisive situation there. And I know that that's not your heart or your intent, and it's not Nikki's or her sister's either.
No, I don't sit here and judge the people that have left their children in the system. I'm not involved in their situation. I don't know the complexities of their family life, but I would like to be left in peace with my choices
Mm-hmm.
instead of
Mm-hmm.
judged for them.
Yeah, and you don't want to be labeled the troublemaker just because
No, but at the
you
same time, as Christians, we're called to fight for what's right as Christians. So,
right.
I mean, I'm not necessarily against fighting for the right thing,
Mm-hmm.
but at the same time, I don't want to be called like a bad person because I homeschool my child.
Right, right. What has it looked like with the churches in the area? So Nikki mentioned, again, I keep referring back to the
Okay.
podcast with Nikki and in conversations with her, but so the homeschool community there has historically had a good relationship, and there's a church that had opened their doors, and they homeschoolers had used the space for a while. But when this disruption happened, where it was kind of like these divisive issues with this meeting that happened and families pulling their kids out, it seems like all of a sudden there was like this sudden parting of ways between the church didn't want to appear to be taking sides with
Mhm.
the homeschoolers and didn't want to cause more division or whatever. And so how did they respond?
Well, they had used this church building for long before I joined the group. We started using it up again in September when our usual school year starts, and we would meet once a month at the church. And the church board decided after all of these issues had come up that they wanted to wash their hands of any issues with the homeschoolers and not look like they were supporting, like you said. And they asked us to stop using the building by January. They didn't really give a good reason or really a reason at all, in my opinion. As to why we couldn't use it, they just said, we're just not going to allow it anymore. which is awful for our kids because we have quite a large group. And there's not very many buildings in town that can accommodate that many kids at one time.
Yeah.
And the other churches after that happened weren't interested in allowing us to use their buildings either.
Mm.
So we've just been using another building in town that's used for community use, but it's $100 per day.
Mm.
And we don't have a ton of funds for that kind of thing. So it's been difficult and
Yeah.
disappointing, frankly.
Yes, I would agree. That is disappointing to hear. It seems like time and again we have these moms, or we have parents, we have members in the community, or we have teachers. I know you'd mentioned even at the school there was a teacher who was concerned, and teachers who've left the school because of this. But we have these individuals who are seeing something happening, and they're alarmed, and they're trying to tell others, and they're pulling their kids, and they're trying to protect their kids. But then you don't see the church responding or reacting in the way that you wish that they would, in a way that's like, hey, this is not right. Like, this is not okay. And then welcoming and protecting you guys and supporting you in your choices. And so I completely agree that that's disappointing to hear. But what I find fascinating and very encouraging is that the Lord sees you and sees your daughter and sees all these families and your children, and he sees the small town of Sharon Springs, and he has not left you guys alone or without hope. He's raising up people, supporters, pioneers. He's providing the building and the space. I know Nikki has just recently been able to purchase space, and the Lord's providing. But I still also want to encourage the body of Christ to learn and to know what's happening and to be supportive in any way that they can.
Yes. We're very
what-
excited about the new building. It's after 2 years of waiting for God we've prayed, and we've loved, like Debbie, our fearless leader, Debbie, love her to death, says that our children are blessed and that God will not leave them behind. And she's so right, because we've patiently waited, and he's finally provided us something
Yes.
to move forward with. And I'm so overwhelmed with that feeling.
Mm-hmm.
It feels
Right.
so good.
Yeah, but it can also feel alone at times when you don't have the support of like your pastor or your church, and you don't have that. It can make us doubt. It can make us feel discouraged in it. So I'm so happy. I'm so encouraged to hear about the work that's happening out there. And that you've been able to be supported as you've made this decision. And again, you are following in obedience and faithfulness, like you and your husband prayed about it and wanted to know what was right for your family, and you're stepping out in that. And then the Lord's surrounding and supporting you. What does your experience look like now that you have brought your daughter home and you're homeschooling?
We are much closer than we were before, because you don't have a lot of time. If you think about it, you have half an hour in the morning before you get them off to school. Then they get home and it's time for homework. You don't really have connection time there. Maybe 20 minutes at the dinner table, and then a few minutes before bedtime. That's like maybe an hour and a half where you have face-to-face, let's have a conversation, chats with your kid. And in comparison to from then to now, we talk every day, sometimes more than mom wants. Trying to get something done. But we're not just teaching school, we're teaching how to love God and how to put him in every part of your life, and how to cook, how to clean, and more things. And as a group, when we have a building, we normally are able to, we meet once a month and we teach them other skills, and we have other classes, and it's a deeper connection than I ever thought we could have in a public school setting.
Yeah.
And she asks so many more questions now because she's allowed to.
Yeah.
In the public school, there's not room to explore extra things. Let's say we were talking about the Titanic the other day, and she got on the computer and just dove deep into it. And she's like, oh, that's really sad. I'm like, it is very sad. And she just kept digging and digging and digging. And in a public school setting, we'd have brought it up and then we'd have moved on right away because we have a schedule.
Sure. Right. Yes.
And unlearning that public school schedule is hard
Mm-hmm.
because
Mm-hmm.
standards, oh, they need to keep up. They need to be doing this because they're in this grade level. That's been hard for me to unlearn. But
Yeah.
I feel like we're making progress. And she's learning piano because she actually has
great.
time to take lessons now.
That's great.
Over the lunch hour, she goes and has her piano lessons, and
Mm.
she's quickly picking it up, and I'm so excited for the future for that.
That's nice. What about emotionally? Is she still suffering from anxiety and getting sick?
Occasional, but nothing like it was before.
Mm-hmm.
She still has anxiety when she sees that person that picked on her out in public,
Mm-hmm.
which will be forever probably. But she, instead of being timid, she will go out and be an extrovert and actually go ask to play with other kids. And in the homeschool group, she has so many friends from all ages because we have like tiny little babies in our group all the way up to high school age children.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that's one thing. There's not an excuse for no socialization for homeschoolers in our group because we have all ages.
Right.
And
Yeah.
we do a lot of work with our local old folks home. Our kids
Mm-hmm.
go over there and do a lot of things with them.
Yeah.
Some of them read to them. We bring them treats on the holidays. We go over and sing, and they're just there is no argument for non-socialization for homeschoolers nowadays, unless you live in
Yeah.
the middle of nowhere with no group.
Right. Right.
Because our kids are very well versed with every age of person,
Yeah.
and I love it.
I'm so glad. I'm so glad it's going well for you, and so glad you've had this option and the support that you've needed. What would you say to other moms who might have their child in a situation at school that they're feeling uncomfortable with?
Ultimately, you are your child's biggest advocate. Even when they're 18 years old, it is your job to speak up. It is your job to ask those questions. And I would encourage everyone to pray about direction. If you're not sure what to do, pray about it, because that's what we did. And it has led us down a path that has been so rewarding.
Mm,
So rewarding.
that's great.
And I will never regret the choices that we've made.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Look for a community. Jump on Facebook. Join a group. Ask questions. And
Yeah.
if you don't like that group, you're somewhere where there's more groups, pick a different one. Because I
Yep.
know in Eastern Kansas, they have an even bigger,
Right.
community of people that are doing different things. So if you don't like the group that you joined, go find another one.
Or start one yourself.
Or start one yourself and
There you go.
invite like-minded people into your group.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
So, I mean, and
Yeah.
always keep your head up because it
Yeah.
can be hard, but it's so worth it.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Well, Jaci, thank you so much for sharing your story with us. And again, I appreciate your obedience, your faithfulness. You're you're a fighter. You are a good mom and making good decisions for your daughter. I know it's not always easy, but praying blessings on you and your family as you continue homeschooling and working with the hybrid school out there with Nikki and that group.
Yes. Thank you so much for having me. This has been great.
All right. Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you.